Yo, man, I'm on some early morning wake and bake sleuth shit. And I was looking up some shit about this so-called slave owner, and I found this paper. It was dated damn near back in the what is this? Oh, it's the Moulton Advisor in Alabama at the time in 1887, guys. Okay, and so I was looking for some shit, and it was about Isham Watkins, and this is really like kind of like an obituary or just some kind of something. But I was like, fuck it, let your boy just go down and sleuth through here real quick. You never know what a nigga might read. You know what I'm saying? And look at this shit, man. The famous will case of David Dickson, the great Georgia planter who died some years ago, leaving an estimated worth of $400,000 to Amanda Eubanks, his illegitimate colored daughter, has been decided in her favor of the Supreme Court of that state. This makes her the richest colored woman in the world. Now, $400,000 was a hell of a lot of fucking money in 1887. Is there claim that she was the richest colored person in the world? Possibly so. And just think about that. In 18 fucking 87, think about having some kind of Elon Musk black woman ass motherfucker out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and how do we go from having some of the richest people in the world to being in poverty over the last 80 years or so, at least for a vast number of us, our families, they playing with us and they know they need to stop it. Man, just that quick for me making that last, because I just really just did this. Look at this document I found. Boy, you can find anything on the net, okay? INNONET, the net. You can find it. But I found this shit, I was like, okay, whatever. I did a little sleuthing on the name and some Google searching. And look at this list of a few wealthy colored men in the state, even though this is a woman. 400K, Amanda Eubanks of Georgia. She was one of the wealthiest colored people in the world at the time. You even got people from New York ain't even fucking with her. And just to prove how I found it, look, I'm a Google SEO expert. I'm also a Google Ads expert and all the other shit, man. And I used it to get my businesses up to the top. But I mean, I've been on Google and Googling shit forever. So I'm just a keyword research fucking nerd. And that's what I Googled, and that's where I found that document on a .edu website. Found another paper talking about the case. It must have been a pretty famous case. It keeps saying the famous Daniel Dickson case. Maybe that's what I need to Google next. Another paper. Great interest is exhibited in the will of the late David Dickson, the farmer millionaire who died, leaving all his property except for a small inheritance or pittance. Amanda Eubanks, a negress. I've seen that word before, negress. These niggas be bullshit, boy. The crazy thing is they're trying to say that the union of Eubanks, Amanda Eubanks and Mr. Dickinson, he had a child um, or whatever, and he wants to take care of the child that he had with her, and that's what they're trying to say, that it was offspring of a slave, kind of thing. But why is he trying to give his entire, they trying to say he's trying to give his entire will, the money that his wealth to basically a slave union, which why would he do that? You know what I mean? A lot of times, I think they just was using that as a way to And look, you know what's crazy as I'm saying this? I just seen the word African over here, and I'm gonna look more into that, literally. But because I was just thinking in my head how they never called her an African. She's a negress. She's a colored. She's this. She's not an African. And obviously they knew what an African was. And looking at that right there, but we'll get. I'm gonna find out what that is. A little bit more sleuthing. But I just wanted y'all to see this, man. I'm trying to see where this leads, but it just corroborates the story that, man, this woman was the richest black woman in the world, according to them at the time. Now, maybe not the richest person in the world, but the richest black person in the world. Man, I had to just go ahead and sleuthing back over here to get off that story, because I was like, what are they talking about bringing over African kidnappings? It says agriculture is the natural basis of material prosperity in the South. The great industries which have always been and all the great industries which always have been and are now the main sources of our wealth and agricultural industries, cotton and tobacco. And the agricultural population of the South, the agricultural population and the laboring populations of the town as well, always has been and is now colored people. So what they're saying, hey, the prosperity of the South is basically agriculture. And here in the South, the industries have always been colored people, the laboring and the and the growers and the laboring population and the agricultural population. It says no political scheme, no economic theory that does not provide for the natural taste and necessities of the black man in the South has a living chance for survival amongst the fittest. The Negro is here to stay. But then it tries to say he did not come here on his own free will, but such as he is, such as we have made him with our African kidnapping, our slavery, our emancipation, and our elective franchise. He is here to stay, or whatever. Equally with the Anglo-Saxon and the Louisiana Creole does not. So basically, what I'm getting here is this is in 1887, okay? And I think this is some of the first institutions, or, around that time, of propaganda. Because one, you have a thing over here where you have a man giving up all his money to this Amanda Eubanks, and they all mad because this black woman about to be the richest person, and he was a planter, But they just said that all the people, mostly in the South, the planters and the agricultural system had been black, had been Negroes. You know what I'm saying? And so then it's almost like they're mad. And how they gonna come here and do all this? And we brought them here through all this other stuff. And it's like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me from 1865 to 1887, they was able to take over the South and have an agricultural powerhouse, and in between 20 years, you know what I'm saying? Because prior to that, you niggas saying you was enslaving them. You know what I mean? So you got to catch the okie doke one, and liars are horrible at lying. Sometimes, especially the people with nowadays, now that we have hindsight. But you got to think. They just said that the agricultural populations had always been the agricultural system, and they said it's the main powerhouse of the wealth and prosperity comes from agriculture, and it was always within the hands of the blacks. Well, for 20 years or for hundreds of years. Don't be playing with us, man. See, boy, I love sleuthing in the mornings. This is why I smoke. You know what I mean? This is why I take a puff in the bonus. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, quit playing with us. Hey, this is a follow up to the richest woman in the world, richest black woman in the world, because I didn't have enough time to put it all on the one. But I just found this too. Look at this shit. Boy, they was mad than a mofo when he said he was going to give her all that bread. They's like, boy, I know you ain't finna get his $400,000 of this woman. Yes, he did. You know what I'm saying? She had that fire. And what's even more so crazy, though, is they're talking about how the above manner in which the late David Dickson, one of the most successful farmers and one of Georgia's richest men, saw fit to dispose of his large estate. The principal heirs is a colored woman, Amanda Eubanks, who shared and the estate is fully $400,000. Why the deceased made so extraordinary a disposition of his property in favor of a Negro in preference of his white relations may be imagined by the public, but is well known to those who lived near. People who lived contiguous to the lands of Mr. Dickson held but little neighborly intercourse with him, and his large wealth failed to gain him their social consideration. It is stated that he made no bequeast of a public charitable whatever I can't read that shit. Whatever. Character. Sorry, I couldn't see it. But nevertheless, the public will have the lesson of his life and his death for its enlightenment. He is being dead will he being dead will receive its charity. But basically, if you can't really understand what it's saying, basically it's saying, hey, look, why did this mofo decide to give him $400? Why did he decide to give it to the black person instead of the white side of his family? Oh, very basically, he was a socially awkward person, and us white folks, we didn't befriend him enough. And you know, basically, if y'all niggas would have became his friend in the social public, then you know, he probably would have gave that to a white woman. So let this be a lesson to us to enlighten us in the future. If you see a white person with a black woman and he has that bread, be his friend. That's literally what they say. Why, you know, this shit is funny. This is another paper. These are different dates. But this one says how his sons and daughters, the white heirs of Dickson, who are scattered through New York and Texas, have also employed counsel and proposed to attack the dead man's sanity. This nigga's insane giving all this money to this black woman. My dad is insane. And that's my fault. Mr. Dickson, the so-called slave he was with, which I don't even know if that's really the truth, but the so-called slave that he with was the mother of Amanda Eubanks. And so they're trying to say that Amanda Eubanks is one of his children with a slave, and the slave had that fire. Not Amanda Eubanks. She might have too, but either way, you know, they just trying to say that you know, he must be insane giving all his money to his black daughter, you know, but they're not really telling the story between him and that so-called slave. Was he still with her? Y'all didn't even know much about him. He was socially awkward. That could have been his wife. That could have been his, you know, whatever throughout. You know what I'm saying? Maybe she passed at some point, and that was, you know, Amanda Eubanks was left after that. They just keep saying they're not talking about that story. So this is, you know, this is their propaganda, especially when they're talking about he's insane. And boy, them white folks was mad when the Supreme Court awarded her that blacks and whites are on the same equality as far as inheritance goes. You know them mofos was mad. And this is 1887. Funny, another newspaper, another date. Y'all noticed this. I'm doing this shit in real time, you know, early morning, getting it in, sleuthing. Y'all noticed the whole time she's been referred to as Amanda Eubanks. And now she's Amanda Dickson. And I didn't even think about that. Oh, yeah, if that's your daughter, shouldn't they have the last name? Almost like that Kamala Harris shit. That's how you know it's propaganda. You know what I'm saying? They kept putting it out in the paper the whole time. Amanda Eubanks, David Dickson giving Amanda Eubanks all this money. You mean Amanda Dickson, his daughter, nigga? Anyways, it says Amanda Dickson, the Negro woman who was awarded recently in the state value $400,000. Now that she's been awarded the money, she's Miss Dickson. Anyways, has been quietly notified that the white people of Augusta, Georgia, where she lives in a big house, prefer her room to her company. Prefer her room to her company. I'm not sure what that means. Damn, now that I think about it, this could be that they talking shit about her in the newspaper. Imagine, you know, hey, we prefer the room versus your company, bitch. Get out. Give me that room back. You know what I'm saying? Is that what that bitch is saying? And imagine getting your money, you know, you wake up, you know, you go to some place or whatever, and you wake up and you read this shit in the newspaper randomly about you. Hey, nigga, we rather have you gone. And what's crazy in this same paper that I just showed y'all, or I just showed you another another paper talking about her being the richest colored woman in the South. Now it says the South, not the world. Worth 100,000. Now I know these niggas is just repeating different newspapers and they just getting this is a game of telephone, nigga. David Dickson left $40,000 of his property estate to Amanda Eubanks, a copper colored Negro woman. The copper colored Negro woman. So she's copper colored and she's black. Come on now. They didn't even know what the hell they were saying. Oh boy. I'm gonna make a multiple part series to this just this morning because I'm just gonna go through it in real time this morning. It's just not something to super dive into. But here's another thing. Dickson's daughter, black she is, but she got all his money. The richest negress in Georgia. And also talks about the world. But the story about how Amanda became the richest negress in the world is one of the most full of interest. She ended up marrying a black Negro named Perry. You know they pissed off she done married a nigger. You know, and she done gave this nigga she done gave all this money to this. I mean, he done gave her all this money. She done went and married a nigga. Ah, they mad. Yeah, they playing. Oh my God. Okay, if y'all following me on this rich black woman, y'all remember I showed y'all a clip where it said, "Hey, look, white people are the reason why we didn't give." Let me see if I can find it. Okay, you can read through it. I already read through this. But down here at the very bottom, it talks about how Mr. Dickson was a socially awkward person and white folks just wasn't his friend because he didn't really stay around the white folks. And so why did he give his money to his black Negro daughter? Probably because us white folks didn't become his friend, right? Oh, and it basically says, let this be a lesson to us in the future that we need to be a friend to these white folks if they got a black person in their life or whatever. But then you jump ahead some years or so, and Amanda Eubanks is getting married to that Negro, all right, named Perry. Okay, it said it's reported that Nathan Toomer, a well-known and esteemed colored farmer of near Perry, my bad, his name is Nathan, was married last Thursday to Amanda Eubanks of Hancock County, the colored daughter of the late David Dickson. The bride is said to be the richest negress in Georgia, her property being estimated of worth $400,000. Nathan has many white friends in Houston County who will cordially congratulate him. Why would you? These niggas. Okay, when I've been talking about this Indian shit and how they've plotted to be part of people's families to get money or to get tribal citizenship in order to gain whatever this and that. I mean, this shows the complicitness, if that's even a word, their complicit nature in trying to propagandize the people as well as trying to swindle people out of their worth and their money through intermarriage and friendships. You know what I'm saying? And it's in the fucking newspapers. You know, yeah, you'd have to follow this through time, and this is way back in the day. You'd have to know, and these are different newspapers and shit. So I mean, like, hindsight is 2020, but we've talked about shit like this that they do and that they've done. And this is why we say stay away from them. Because it's not that we don't want to care to like white folks or whatever, or people, period. I'm sorry. But it's the fact that it's hard to trust. How can you trust when you all have documented fucking newspapers with you all trying, talking about a person and talking about her dad's insanity and talking about, all this other stuff, and we should befriend. Let it be a lesson in the future to befriend the person that has a black person that has whatever. Y'all know what I'm saying. This is all real time. I'm just I was supposed to be looking at my family shit and whatever. I done got caught up in this story, but to be honest with you, uh, I'm really thinking about making a film about it at some point. I'm gonna have to write it out, you know what I'm saying, shit over time, whatever. But I think it's an amazing story. I mean, the richest black woman in the 1800s, that's an amazing story. And then this whole backstory of how she got the money. And, I'm going to have to do some deep diving on Dave Dickson, how he even got into the family, how he even got there in America. It's one of those things where these people, they come from another country, and then they find them a wealthy family, or a family that's, some kind of chief of in an Indian, nation or something, and they marry themselves in, so they can get some of the bread. I don't know where did David Dixon get his money from. I don't know. Maybe he was a, self starter, whatever. I doubt it. Whatever. I doubt that. Another newspaper getting it wrong, because this is 1887. By this time, she had 40,000. But it just goes to show she was listed as the richest colored woman in a lot of newspapers, and they tell you where she lives. I mean, you got to think about that. In a time of heightened ass racism, they done put in the newspapers, they all over the place. Hey, the richest colored girl, she worth about 400K. She live right all over there. Nigga, what you telling people for? Now, tell me I'm not reading this wrong. I got to do a little bit more digging. David Dickson, colored, of Georgia, died, leaving his $400,000 to Amanda Eubanks, and is now the richest colored lady in the lands. Now, I got to find more about David Dickson, but that makes sense because I showed earlier a news clip about how black people were the powerhouse of the South. Now I gotta find the fucking thing. I'm just doing this in real time, and I don't want to lose my spot, but I hate saying shit in the video and not showing shit. But y'all mad that a big black farmer left his so-called slave daughter, as they said, a motherfucking grip? They playing. But I can't get back where it says the richest colored woman of the South made way by her white father. Maybe her father was a mulatto, and they're mad that he didn't leave the portion to the white mulatto part of the family. The only time I've only seen it say colored once, and that could have been a mistake, but that's a crazy mistake. But I can see white people saying, no, he's white. He made all that money, man. That's a white man now. I can see that. But I got to find more. This is going to be a crazy story. Ooh. This is another page. It's like a lot of papers, a lot of results that came up. So this is why this is a long story, and I'm doing this shit in real time. But the story just keeps getting deeper and deeper, dog. You know what I'm saying? It says there are more ways than one for finding gold mines. Here was a way pointed out by the Banner Watchman, a gentleman who has often visited Mr. David Dickson, says he has seen Amanda Eubanks, the Negro, whom he left $400,000 in his will. Our informant, talking about this guy, I think so, says she is an ordinary looking copper colored woman. Boy, they called us that. They called us that like a motherfucker. Okay, anyways, because that's what we are. And so when we look at the definition, so now on, when people bring up that definition of a copper-colored American under the word American, we can say with this fucking shit, who the fuck they talking about? Of about 45 years of age. Sorry, a little tangent. Mr. Dickson was married, but his wife only lived a few months. And what did I say earlier? I said maybe he was with they ain't saying nothing about his wife and who the fuck her mom was and whatever. So whoever his mom was, who they trying to say is a slave, you know what I'm saying? Which they're not saying that here. It says his heirs will try to break the will, and it's highly probable that the lawyers will reap the spoils. But and then it just stops from that point. But think about this. So now you have David Dickson, who's possibly a black or a mulatto. I don't think he's fully white, but he has some white connections to him, or they just trying to put that on him because he's the richest man in the world. Because if she's the richest woman in the world, black woman in the world, he's the richest man. And so he gives that or whatever to her, and then next thing you know, they like the wife that he was with died or whatever, and he's tied to this person. He's really tired. This is his love, his cherished, family member from the deceased woman that he loved dearly. That's why he left that fucking money. Not because he's insane, you fucking white folks. The richest colored woman in the country, Mrs. Amanda Eubanks in Rome, Georgia, pays taxes on 400K, got it from a white father. I wonder if if this is just propaganda, because I see many papers and they just mention this white father, white father, white father, white father. Like maybe they just like put that out in the atmosphere that that's what he was. I got to look it up. Maybe he was, but I really feel like it's something different. Oh man, y'all gotta stay tuned for the next one. I don't have enough time, but right here it starts to say that all over the country, colored women are advancing themselves in financial and intellectual and moral ways. Stay tuned because I only have about 20 seconds. All right, so according to them, this is Mr. David Dickson, and this is the beautiful looking Amanda Eubanks. And yeah, if this is a real picture of her, which it should be. In 1887, there was definitely photography, and being the richest person in the world, you would damn sure get it. So she damn sure looks mulatto. So I'm going to at least take away the idea that he was a mulatto. But because I seen that one paper that listed him as a color. But again, these papers, editors, whatever, probably wasn't super straight. But, still though, it doesn't necessarily mean that her mom was a slave. And of course, nothing talks about her being anybody African. And, we've seen an African mixed with a white person. That's not what they turn out to look like, typically. So that theory's out the window. Indian and white, likely. I don't know. We have to look back in the Amanda Eubanks history. But this is what they're saying so far. This is the propaganda they want us to believe. Listen.
Her mother, Julia, was just 12 years old when she was raped by her master, who was 40 years of age. Julia then became a mother at the very young age of 13. For a while, Amanda lived with her mother and her maternal grandmother, but once Amanda was no longer dependent on her mother's milk, she was taken from her. It was decided by Dickson and his family that Amanda was to be raised in the household of her white grandmother, Elizabeth Scholars Dickson. Although legally a slave by birth, Amanda's father made sure that she was well educated. Thus, she was taught to read, write, and play the piano. Throughout the years, Lewis Dickson developed innovative and successful farming techniques. Due to this, he became famous in the local area and much wealthier. Labor. Dickson treated his daughter well, showering her with love and affection. When Julia was able to see her daughter, she also gave her lots of love, but Dickson treated the mother of his daughter quite badly. Julia Francis was owned by Dickson and worked as his housekeeper. Not only did she have to do long, hard hours, but she was also forced to satisfy all of Dickson's needs, including sexual ones.
Have they presented a fucking piece of document? Have they presented any piece of newspaper? What information? Because remember, nobody knew much about this motherfucker. He was a social retard, according to white folks, and we knew nothing about him. Right? And then you also didn't even know anything about his wife or the slave. There was only one paper that I showed that had a motherfucking that had listed the slave, or they didn't even call her a slave, the person that he was with at the time, Eubanks' mother. He just said Amanda Eubanks' mother. And they gave Amanda Eubanks' mother a different last name here. So where did she get the last name Eubanks, especially if his is Dickson? Whatever. Lies upon lies. But on top of that, you're talking about he raped this 12-year-old slave and had her and made slave. It said that he was with this woman, and that newspaper said that he was with this woman, and that woman died after several months or whatever. And I mean, and he left his whole estate to this Amanda Eubanks or Amanda Dickson. This bitch ass nigga ain't produced a lick of anything. Again, y'all, this is real time. I just was smoking, chilling this morning. Supposed to be on a whole nother tip. And now I'm uncovering lies from fucking 4 years ago. This is why we hate y'all. This is why we can't stand you motherfuckers. I was just bullshitting around, man. And then I come across the story of the richest black woman in 1887, and this is the history you give her? This is the fucking history you get put in her fucking name? Being raped by at 12 years old, her mother and shit? And ain't no proof? Oh, I'm mad than a bitch now.
Thanks to her father's social standing, she was quite privileged. For example, she was taught the social customs of her wealthy white family, proper etiquette, how to dress, and in general, how to be and act as a lady. All of this would hopefully allow her to be a lady of society.
But she married a nigga on y'all. With all that money, she took off and married a nigga.
Furthermore, Amanda's father taught her practical knowledge, such as how to conduct a business.
And y'all mad.
Information allowed her to have good finances, meaning she could maintain and protect her wealth, if need be. Growing up, Amanda developed a special relationship with her grandmother, Elizabeth. She would spend many hours in her grandmother's room, enjoying her company. In Georgia, it was prohibited by law to independently free slaves, meaning even if slaveholders wanted to, they couldn't change the status of their slaves to free. Because of this, it wasn't until in 1865 that Amanda was freed.
That's a bunch of bullshit. You gotta think about this. Hold on. I got census records. Watch this. You know what? I'm not even gonna pull up the census records, and she's beautiful right there. But you gotta think about this. We've heard and seen documents of people being able to become free, people paying for their freedom. There's actually one of my ancestors that shows that that they paid $3,000 for their goddamn freedom. Hold on. Okay, whatever. I can't find. I don't. It's like I said. I'm trying to really get through this, so I can't find the document. But we've heard it. You know, people can be. So you got the wealthiest man in the world. They're gonna tell us that. Oh well. Unfortunately, her status could not be changed to that of just a mere slave. These people and their propaganda, dude.
She left her 16 years old. That Amanda was freed. When Amanda was 16 years old, she left her father's plantation to marry her first white cousin called Charles Eubanks. Together they lived on a small plantation in Floyd County, Georgia.
Come on now. Now, I haven't seen this in a newspaper, and I'm going to try to find it, and it's possible. But at 16 years old, and maybe, you know, old times, but at 16 years old, you want to tell me she married this bulb-head-ass white dude cousin? And that's where, I guess that's where she got the last name Eubanks, y'all. And that would make them even more pissed off, but I didn't see that in the newspapers. We did see that she got later married to a Nathan, who's a black Negro, and they was pretty pissed off about it. And they were saying, oh, we need to make friends of that Negro. You people down there in Houston County, let's make some friends of that Negro. We saw that in the newspaper, but we haven't seen this. Again, this is just video. I mean, like, how come they didn't show a marriage document? How come they didn't show a newspaper record of their marriage? How come they didn't show them being married? How come you don't see a photo of them together? I just thought about that. Look, y'all gonna have to stay tuned for this story, man. These motherfuckers be super lying. Super monster lying, nigga. I'm about to go back to I want to finish this video first, but I'm about to go back to the news clips. But let me show you how many results came up on these news clips. I mean, I'm almost to the end, possibly. Let me see, 7. 7. Okay, I'm almost to the end. And I mean, you know, after that, I'm going to search David Dickson's name and I'm going to search the Eubanks name in these newspapers to see what I come up with. But they really playing with us, man. All right, so I haven't read this. So I'm going to read it in real time and then give my ideas on it, you know, following the same Amanda Eubanks. And you got to think about it. If she was the richest black woman in the world in 1887, this was a lot of news. Like, I just randomly, if you caught the first thing that I saw, I wasn't even looking for this story. I just randomly scrolled down, saw colored, looked forward, and I've been drawn into this. And when I searched her name in these newspapers on this website, this EDU website, you know, basically it was a ton of results. And now when you think about it, being the most, what do you call it? What did it say? The richest black woman in the world, it would have been a big thing. You know, it'd have been all over TV every day. You know what I mean? But it was in the newspapers. The richest colored woman in America is Amanda Eubanks of Rome, Georgia, who pays about $400,000 of worth on the property taxes. She's said to have been inherited from a white father or whatever. All over the country, colored women are advancing themselves in financial and intellectual ways. Now, this is 1887, 20 years after, less than 20 years, or so, maybe 20 years or so after 1865 from slavery, okay? In Philadelphia, a colored woman writes for the newspapers and is considered clever and also conducts a special department in the leading organ of the colored race in the country. Miss Charlotte Fordham, now Mrs. Frank Greenkay, whatever, has written all for the Atlantic Monthly. A colored woman is a lawyer in New York City, and in other cities of the North are to be found many colored women physicians. It is a little bit curious to know that the first Sunday school in New York City was started by 2 colored women. What? The first Sunday school. I don't know if that's the first Sunday school just in New York City. That I'm curious about that. Man, we always the first to do some shit, man, and they be like, y'all always want to be the first niggas to say, nigga, what does this say in the papers in 1887? Nigga, y'all niggas be bullshit. But this is just my real time, you know, thoughts on this shit. But so now we have, let me show y'all this too. I had showed this earlier on part 1 that talks about how agriculture is the natural basis of material prosperity in the South. The great industries which always have been, and now are the main sources of our wealth in 1887, but they always have been in 1887, which are now the main streets are source of our wealth, the main sources of the wealth, 1887, always have been, are agricultural industries and the cotton and tobacco. And the agricultural population of the South, the agricultural population and the laboring populations of the town, both, always have been and is now colored people, okay? 1887. This is luminous and a significant fact in history of the Southern people. It's a luminous significant fact in the history of the Southern people. in 1887. Okay? It always has been the material prosperity of the industries. They give them wealth in 1887. No political scheme, blah, blah, blah. Then they get mad at it. Oh, but these are just Negroes that we, got here from Africa after the African king kidnapping or whatever. That's some propaganda shit. Because in 1887, if y'all did all that shit and let us go in 1865, you mean to tell us we took over the whole South in that little bit of time and gained some of the wealthiest people, where you got a wealthy negress, as y'all write, named Amanda Eubanks. All right, continuing with the story, found another one. Look at this. The will of David Dickson, the Hancock County celebrated farmer, he has been admitted to probate, and he bequeathed his vast property mostly to Negroes. And it did. I forgot to show or point out there was like a breakdown on one of those articles of how he gave Amanda Eubanks $40,000, but there was another area where it showed two colored people with the last name Eubanks, and I was like, damn, I need to go back to that. I missed that. That received some money too, and right here, this corroborates that. Coloreds received $400,000, and about $60,000 goes to another parties in small sums. It is said that Mr. Dickson's social standing amongst his neighbors was below par. Looks like y'all wasn't being his friend enough, niggas, white folks. Wow, boy. He ignored his white relations and gave the bulk of his property of those to his household servants. He had no wife. And that's what they're trying to say. But for one, Eubanks was not his servant. That was his daughter. So that's another lie. And two, the other two were Eubanks also, and so I doubt that they were servants. And so it just doesn't make any sense. Richest farmer in the world. If think about it, guys, think about it. If you're the richest fucking farmer in the world, do you need to make your fucking daughter, even if it was through a fucking slave, do you need to make them a fucking slave? You're the richest person in the world. You can afford a stable of slaves. Why would Amanda Eubanks be his slave? Or the other two people he gave the money to be his household servants? When you can, come on now. Do you honestly think that would be the fucking case? When we say people have to think, you should read and fucking think. Never just read. A fucking African read this shit. It's that Negro slave. You nigga slaves. He was a slave, nigga. You can't think past malnutrition, nigga. Something else I just thought about. Talks about how he's ignoring his white relations. And another thing we saw where he had an informant that actually saw or knew about the so-called slave that he was with, talking about David Dickson. And they got Amanda Eubanks here, and they talk about the so-called kids that are other children that are supposedly contesting this in one paper. I've only seen that in one paper. But here it talks about how he's just ignoring his white relations. Like I said, I wonder if he's mulatto and they're mad that he went and chose a black woman to have a black child with. And I showed in that paper where how the mother died. So they ain't saying nothing about the black mother. But you know what they really haven't said? Anything about a white wife. Did he never have? If he's never had a white wife, or white children, and even if he was white, I think he's mulatto. I mean, then they're just getting mad at him giving his estate to his daughter. But nobody so far has said anything about any part of his white ex-wife is pissed off You know what I'm saying? Or a white ex-wife's name.
Amanda
Well,
American
well,
Dickson Toomer
well.
was born enslaved on the 20th of November, 1849,
Well,
on the
well,
Dickson
well.
plantation in Hancock County, Georgia. Her mother, Julia Frances Lewis, was a slave who worked as
Watch the okey doke.
a house servant. Meanwhile, her father was a well-known slave owner and agricultural reformer called David Dickson.
One thing I hate on YouTube is you have lots of propaganda spoken by these British fucking voices over B-roll photos and panned and all that other shit, just whatever. And they just repeat propaganda. There's tons of this. I have a few seconds. Check for the next video. We're getting deep. Okay, y'all, this is how they say she took on the Eubanks name. Now, it's possible that I'm thinking about that she took on the Eubanks name because, sorry, I got my feet propped up or whatever. She took it on a Eubanks name because that was her real mother's last name, is what I'm thinking. And they didn't put the Dickson name on there. But they're saying that at age 16, no, she was the child of a raped in bondage person. And so, and at that point they ripped her away from her in bondage mother. And now she's trying to make this one friendly for you for the TikTok. Now she's cussing up a storm this whole time. But now she's then she got, after that, when she turned 16, she grew up under her grandma, and then when she turned 16, she got with her bulb head, Caucasian cousin. And this is what they're saying, the reason why they don't have any documents on how they were married. Listen to this.
She left her father's plantation to marry her first white cousin called Charles Eubanks. Together they lived on a small plantation,
even though they don't have a picture of them together, but together they lived,
in Floyd County, Georgia, near the city of Rome.
Or document or anything at all of them together in 1887, where documents were prevalent amongst this nigga dude that is the most richest family in the world around this time. Okay.
Although the couple wanted to marry, they couldn't do so legally in Georgia, because at that point in time, certain laws prohibited the marriage of interracial couples.
And the richest person in the world couldn't get married. His daughter couldn't get married to her cousin because of Georgia laws. They couldn't drive a state over being the richest person in the world and get married there and come back. So that way they would have some kind of documentation on this. No, they were stuck in Georgia as the rich people in the world. And being stuck as the rich people in the world, they had no way of documenting this marriage. Okay, you got to understand, this is 1887, where cameras just came out. The richest person in the world wouldn't have access to a camera or documents. He's the richest person in the world. Yeah, the Indians signed treaties and shit, long ago, back in the early days and stuff, and there's documents in there. But the richest person in the world ain't got no documents. They merely couldn't even change her status as a mere slave, in bondage person. This is what they want you to believe.
Prohibited the marriage of interracial couples. It's not known if they got married in another state where these laws didn't exist, as there's no proof of a legal marriage ever taking place.
What?
Her partner Charles had recently returned from fighting in the Civil War, serving in the Confederate Army.
Hold up. So then you say, there's no records of any other state, so don't go looking, because there's no other records. But we gave her, but they took the last name. It was common law. It was, These niggas cannot lie. They cannot lie, dude. It is not known that the richest person in the world at the time could have gone to another state because of Georgia laws and things. And so yeah, don't go to don't look around. There's no marriage licenses or anything. But the Eubanks name came from this dude right here that we don't have any photos of. Yeah, he looks scraggly. Yeah, he looks scraggly to the motherfucker, and she look dapper than a bitch. Yeah, he looked like he. They want you to believe. The richest motherfucker in the world who has the most dapperest of the motherfucking daughters took this motherfucker on. There's no records, okay? So don't go looking down the Eubanks rabbit hole for niggas and things, okay? They playing, dude.
Her partner Charles had recently returned from fighting in the Civil War, serving in the Confederate Army. Shortly after Amanda moved in with Charles, they had a son called Julian Henry, and in 1870, she gave birth to Charles Green. Both went on to become part of Georgia's high society.
Weren't those different last names? Listen to this again.
Taking place. Her partner Charles had recently returned from fighting in the Civil War,
Charles Eubanks.
serving in the Confederate Army.
Amanda
Shortly
Dickson.
after Amanda moved in with Charles, they had a son called Julian Henry.
Julian
and
Henry.
In 1870, she gave birth to Charles Green.
Charles Green.
Both went on to become part of Georgia's high society.
Wouldn't they take on the father's last name? Let's keep listening.
Marrying women from prominent families. Unfortunately, Amanda was constantly unhappy in the relationship, and so, in 1870, just after giving birth to her second son, she left Charles and returned to live on the Dickson plantation. Charles Eubanks then died on the 31st of July, 1873.
Oh, he's gone, so don't go looking for him. Okay? This is how they... He had 2 children that didn't take on his last name. There was never any records of this marriage in any other state, wealthiest family in the world at the time. She went, randomly had kids with her cousin real quick, two boys, was unhappy, left his ass, and he just died out of nowhere. These are probably the 2 so-called white boys that are trying to contest the estate and trying to get her money, or they trying to tie some people to her to get that motherfucking money. This is insane, y'all. I hope y'all watch from the beginning, man. Let's see what else they gotta say.
When Amanda was 27, she left her home once again in order to attend the normal school of Atlanta University. She studied teaching there.
Oh, she left here, she went around them niggas. Is this where they get? Is this where they get? Oh, we done raised her in the white ways. This ain't gonna be you TikTok friendly. Fuck it. We done raised her in the white ways. We done gave her this white man that you can't go looking for. Okay, and these white children she had, y'all didn't know about. And then she took off to the university at age 27. You know, because the richest woman in the world needed to go to college. And it's these niggas about to corrupt her. Watch.
For 2 years, from 1876 to 1878. After this, she returned home to the plantation once again.
1876 to 1878. A lot of those papers was 1876 to 88. Those papers where she got that money was in 88, 85 to 87. So she would have gotten her inheritance while she was so-called there. Let's see where they go.
The 18th of February, 1885.
Okay, he said
Amanda's
1885.
father, David Dickson, suddenly died. This was very important for his relatives, as it was unclear how his will was going to be divided. And of course, everyone wanted...
It wasn't unclear how his will was going to be provided. Let me see if I can pull up that fucking will. Unclear my motherfucking ass. He had gave 400,000 to her and several thousands to some more colors that y'all put down in the newspaper and all this other stuff. Ain't nothing clear about newspaper documents. Only got 30 seconds left. Stay tuned for part 6. Last one I labeled it wrong. It was part 5. But stay tuned. I'm going to just keep playing this and going through this rest of this video, man, before I get back to the newspapers. This is turning out wild.
Will stated that this estate would be left to her sound judgment and unlimited personal possessions, included over 50, stated that all of his wealth and property, which included over 15,000 acres of land, his personal possessions, and $3,000 in cash, would be left to his daughter, Amanda Dickson, and her 2 sons. The will stated that this estate would be left to her sound judgment and unlimited discretion. Furthermore,
hold on, to who?
15,000 his daughter, $1,000 in cash would be left to his daughter, Amanda Dickson, and her 2 sons. The will stated...
Wait a minute. Where did we see her 2 sons? You see how they just threw that in there? Do you see 2 sons listed here? Now maybe Julian and Charles Eubanks, but this says they're both colored. And Julian and Charles, what was the name that he said that those children were? Hold on, y'all. I'm at the 6:31 mark.
Her partner Charles had recently returned from fighting in the Civil War, serving in the Confederate Army. Shortly after Amanda moved in with Charles, they had a son called Julian Henry, and in 1870, she gave birth to Charles Green. Both went on to become part of Georgia's...
I know y'all saw that. Hold up. And this is the motherfucking newspaper. We saw both Charles Eubanks and Julian. What do you see in parentheses? Edward Eubanks. And they're saying that the cousin was a white dude named Charles Eubanks that took on Amanda and had wow, we catching them, y'all, in real time. We catching these bitch ass niggas in real time. If these 2 are colored, Edwards is colored, Amanda colored, and everybody explained her to be a negress, copper colored. I'm sorry, copper colored. I'm sorry. They've been showing the whole time this bitch that looks like she's straight from Hungary. And I gave this bitch credit for a moment with this goddamn bullshit she got on. This ain't goddamn motherfucking, that ain't him. And this ain't her. And that ain't her. I'm fucking, I literally got a little chills, y'all. I literally got fucking chills. Y'all see that? And she's been listed as the richest black woman in the world this whole time. Listed as a copper-colored negress, Negro, black woman, black, copper. There ain't a goddamn thing copper about this bitch. And this ain't motherfucking Charles Eubanks. Charles Eubanks is not her fucking cousin. That don't make sense. And like I said, if they are all black, I really believe David Dickson is black. Again, let me show y'all. It was always known that in the South, that the wealth that's generated from agriculture, I'm not reading it direct, it's the main source of the wealth. And that the people who always, the population of the labor-owned towns have always been colored people. Okay, that time I did. Let me do it like this. Colored people. If you read this whole thing, I presented it earlier. They really playing. Y'all, if y'all was with me from the first one, literally, I was just looking up some shit from my family members had like a slave. I feel like my ancestors are talking to me, man, talking to me through the computers. I've always felt like that. But, you know, I was just looking up, some shit about that, and I just was scrolling down, saw some article, and this shit led me into this direction. And I'm glad I read the articles before I even looked up the YouTube. See, I could have simply looked up the YouTube, be like, oh, okay, that's what happened. That's why I don't trust none of that British spoken shit that they be talking about on there and shit. Man, let's get back to the video. But this is insane, y'all. That ain't them. If you been with me from part one, nigga, that's not them. And the only paper we saw had one informant. Let me see if I can find it. And while I'm looking that up, y'all, remember I said earlier, why do they keep saying, white man, white man, white man? Amanda Bates got this $400,000 from a white man. And they would just leave it like that. I said, this looks like fucking propaganda, dude. Like, why do y'all keep saying that in the newspapers over and over and over again? I mean, I can understand the contention from the times and the racial tension and shit, but in a big case, especially if that was the truth. But, man, like, it's just insane, man. It's insane, y'all. I'm looking for this. Let me stop. This is the only one that shows like somebody that was an informant that said he's seen her and she looks like a copper-colored Negro type shit, and they call her a Negro. And this is also, there was also one paper that referred to David Dickson as a colored, and it's like ever since then they've been trying to white him out. Let's go back to the video, man, but this is insane.
The will stated that this estate would be left to her sound judgment and unlimited discretion. Furthermore, stated that all of his wealth and property, which included over 15,000 acres of land, his personal possessions, and $3,000 in cash, would be left to his daughter, Amanda Dickson, and her 2 sons. The will stated that this estate would be left to her sound judgment and unlimited discretion. Furthermore, it prohibited interference from anyone, including any future husband. Despite Dickson's dying wish.
You see how they're trying to write that black husband we know about already out. It also says if you get married in the future, can't nobody get none of that bread. Nigga, do you think her dad would have put that in the fucking...
Of no one contesting his will, a total of Dickson and her 2 sons. The will stated that this estate would be left to her sound judgment and unlimited discretion. Furthermore, it prohibited interference from anyone, including any future husband. Despite Dickson's dying wish of no one contesting his will, a total of 79 relatives filed a lawsuit, taking the David Dickson will case to court. Many arguments were presented in order to prevent Amanda Dickson.
Why would 79 people, and remember, he was socially unknown, 79 people file a motherfucking claim on his money? He only had that one daughter that we know of, and supposedly two sons. But, y'all, stay the fuck tuned, dude. I don't even know what part it is. I done got the numbers off. Look, man, we about to continue, but if you've been watching, let me wipe my camera. If you've been watching since the first one, I ain't never heard this story before, and I'm going to Google to see if I can find more shit about it. I mean, but we may have just uncovered a hidden story of whitewashing. I mean, there's so many other stories they whitewash, so that's nothing new. But, another hidden story of a Elon Musk like black woman that inherited money from an Elon Musk black dude. David Dickson, in my opinion, right now is black. Something else is gonna have to show up to show me differently, nigga. Them newspaper articles that just kind of mention it through propaganda, it's not gonna be enough for me at this point. I gotta see documentation, nigga. And I'ma look. Y'all best believe I'ma look. But, just think about it. This story has not, that I know of, hasn't been heard. So like, share the shit out of this, man. Like, this woman shouldn't have this woman and this man shouldn't have their reputation whitewashed and besmirched. Not only do you whitewash it, but then you add in a fake story of slave rape. These people are fucking sick. Let's keep going, man.
From inheriting her late father's fortune, a frequently raised point was that David Dickson was not of sounder mind when he wrote the will.
It's that insanity shit.
Other family members insisted that he was unduly influenced by Amanda America and Julia Dickson. Some family members even went as far as to say that Amanda wasn't actually his daughter. The case was first resolved by a probate court which ruled in favor of the will. Following an appeal in November 1885, it went to the Superior Court of Hancock County. Again, the court upheld the will's validity. Not happy with this result, Amanda's restless, distant family members appealed once again.
I was about to say, is that a Mason symbol? I don't know.
The case finally made its way to the Supreme Court of Georgia. In the end, it was ruled by Associate Justices Samuel Hall and Mark Blanford that Amanda was entitled to everything Dickson had left her in the will.
Yep.
The ruling cited the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, as it states that property rights are equal for everyone, no matter the race. Finally, after more than 2 years since her father's death, Amanda was finally able to dispose of her inheritance. Thanks to this, she became one of the wealthiest African-American women of the 19th century. As a result,
never in those documents did you see the word African American. Never in the newspaper. Keep that in mind. You never once saw African American. There was a newspaper that listed her as copper-colored black, blah, blah, blah. And they also, in the next column, talked about Africans and how we brought some of these black people over from Africa. But they know the difference. Never once was that an African American.
Of the legal dispute with her family, Amanda felt so much pressure and discontent that she left her family plantation on the 15th of July, 1886. She settled in Augusta, Georgia, a city which she was familiar with.
A city where she knew all them niggas was at. That's what he meant. And she was familiar with them niggas.
There, Amanda purchased a large 7-bedroom red brick home in one of the best neighborhoods.
Or did she just move to Augusta, Georgia because she was black? Right? She was a wealthy black person who just gained all this money from her wealthy black dad as a wealthy planter on the outskirts in the rural area. And so she decided to move to the big city with all her money. How about that?
In the city. After a short time in Augusta, Amanda's wealth allowed her to become part of the elite black community in the city. Her intelligence,
Oh, they took her in because she had money.
elegance, good nature, and wealth made her well liked and known by much of Georgia's high society. On the 14th of July, 1892, Amanda married Nathan Toomer. Her husband was similar to her in many ways. Like Amanda, Nathan was well educated, wealthy, and mixed race.
Let me find it. Let me find it. Dang, I'm not gonna find it, y'all. I'm saving a lot of the links to the papers, and then I gotta pull them all back up. And it's so many links that I've saved. But it showed on that paper, like I showed y'all, that she married a guy, a colored boy named Perry. Never said in there that he was a mixed race. It never said that, but I don't know, you know. But it said that he had lots of white friends in Houston County, and that his white friends need to get a little close to that bread. You know what I'm saying? Boy, it's crazy.
He too had been born into slavery, yet he learned the ways of upper-class white gentlemen.
He threw him a slavery story. They threw him a slavery story. He too was born into slavery and just somehow came to be one of the elites and got with this girl full of bread. Oh, my God. And I don't want to have to go looking into his story. You know what I'm saying? Oh, my God. I'm going to focus on Amanda right now, man. But God damn, boy, they be lying.
When he worked as a personal assistant to Colonel Henry Toomer. For various months after her marriage, Amanda had many health problems which were constantly attended to by the family physician, Thomas D. Coleman. Eventually, her health did improve, but it would again deteriorate due to a stressful family ordeal.
Oh, she was stressed out. What? It's not funny. They literally try to contribute her health problems to being with that nigga. Y'all get it? I hope y'all get it.
In 1893, her youngest son, 23-year-old Charles Green Dickson, who was a married man.
Charles Green Dickson? That doesn't make sense. He would have been Charles Green Eubanks, right? Because this dude was supposedly the son of the white Eubanks, Charles, right? This dude can't even keep his fucking story straight. They can't even keep... So he took on his grandpa's last name. So is she goddamn Amanda Eubanks? Is she goddamn Amanda Dickson? If the cousin was Charles Eubanks, why would the cousin all of a sudden have the grandfather's fucking last name? Especially when he had the father's last name of Eubanks. Remember when I said earlier, what's their fucking last name? No. And think about this. If the dude's name, not this bitch, if the dude's real name is Charles Green Dickson, that means that's her brother. Amanda Dickson. The dude's name, Dickson. Dick Dickson, whatever his first name is. Dan Dickson, whatever, the one that gave her the money. So Eugene and all them, that's probably her brothers. And they done turned the story into that being the cousin, and you know, this is insanity.
Became infatuated with his stepsister, Mammy Toomer, who was just 14 years old. In order to protect the young girl, Amanda and Nathan Toomer deal.
And they like to put so much pedophilia in here. She was raped at 12, and then her mom was raped at 12, and then Amanda left at 16 and got with this white dude, and then her son got with another woman and was taking her at 14. What the fuck is wrong with y'all, man? What the fuck is wrong with these people? I ain't got much time on part 8 left, y'all. I can't get through this shit. It's the lies are enormous. And why do they have to go to such sexual deviant extents of explanations? If I said that right. Look, y'all, man, stay tuned for the next one. God damn. And you got to think about it too. You haven't seen them show a picture of her with anybody. And you know the richest woman in the world would have had photos. The richest black woman in the world would have had photos. And I'm going to have to try to sleuth around and find them. But on top of that, you got to think they didn't have a photo of her with the first fake husband, that Charles Eubanks dude, bulb head looking fake dude, and it was like, well, she got with her cousin and he died, and then whatever, this dude right here, it was like, yeah, she got with her cousin and he passed on, whatever. And then now they talking about how she got with Nathan, and that's in the newspaper that he was black, colored, but they're trying to explain him as a mixed race person, and they're trying to say that they don't have a photo of that either, of them together, which they would have had. The late 1800, man, photos was for sure out there. So, and they're not showing newspaper articles and shit. They're not showing this whole time. Again, y'all, this whole stuff started from a string of newspaper articles that told the history, that told quite a bit of the history, at least as far as the aftermath during the years where she was getting the inheritance. But let's listen. Let's go.
1893, her youngest son, 23-year-old Charles Green Dickson, who was a married man, became infatuated with his stepsister, Mammy Toomer, who was just 14 years old. In order to protect the young girl, Amanda and Nathan Toomer decided to send Mammy to a convent school in Baltimore, Maryland. However, this didn't deter Charles. With the aid of 3 accomplices, 2 of whom were his in-laws, they planned to kidnap young...
This is the first thing they've shown. Let's read it. So according to this, up until this point, he got with some chick, raped her pretty much, and pretty much a baby came out of that. And in order to protect the baby, because he was such a ravenous pedophile, okay, just fucking this dude's name up, who's a colored person in the newspaper, because he was such a ravenous pedophile. They had to take her kid off to boarding school, and I mean, he was so enraged by his pedophile desires, that he had to have his. And not only that, it was incestuous, if that's a word, incestuous, ravenous pedophile desires. Let me read this fucking paper, man. This is the only paper they put up. Out of this famous case, remember, the case was famous. On trial for kidnapping, Baltimore, for March 14th. After many delays, the Mammy Toomer kidnapping case came up for trial yesterday. Mammy Toomer is a colored girl, the daughter of Nathan Toomer of Augusta, Georgia. Nathan Toomer. Why would his name change to Toomer if he's the man? The man keeps a last name, y'all. Who the fuck is Nathan Toomer? Wasn't it Charles? Is this supposed to be his son? And his son would still have his last name. The men do not change last names. God damn. Her father is said to be a wealthy planter. Mammy was brought to Baltimore in March 1893 and placed in St. Francis Academy. Later, Dunbar Walton, a young colored man. What? Kerry Wilson, also colored. Louis E. Franks, a white hack driver, and Everett J. Waring, a colored attorney of this city, were indicted for an alleged conspiracy to kidnap Mammy. To kidnap a little girl. The ostensible object of the alleged conspiracy was to enable Charles Dickson. Who the fuck is he? Charles Dickson, no, Dickson. Dickson is not spelled like that. Dickson was spelled Dickson. They're trying to pull another fucking okey doke. This whole time. David Dickson. Bitch, that's not Dickson. And I don't give a fuck if you're trying to say they spelled it. No, nigga. It was a famous case in many newspapers, bitch. They would have had the name right. The man of who's a so whoever this Charles Dickson is, who's a real pedophile, they're trying to tie him to it. They're trying to tie Amanda's son to this. Y'all see how deep we are? Y'all see how crazy the lies are? I'll never trust these I ain't never trusted these motherfuckers, really. I can't trust them. Let's keep going, man.
Mammy Toomer. Fortunately, their plan failed, and as a result, all of those involved, except Charles Dickson, were indicted for conspiring to kidnap the young girl.
So they planned it. It didn't work. I don't even know if they even tried. But they put these people in jail for thinking about it.
After having spent around a month in Baltimore, the ordeal was behind them. So Nathan and Amanda traveled back.
A month in jail? I don't know. Hold on.
Back home to Augusta. Sadly, they were discriminated against when they were denied their first-class seats on a Pullman car. Due to this, they had to change their travel plans. As a result, the journey home was very unpleasant. Conditions while traveling were not ideal, and the very high temperatures caused Amanda's health to once again take a turn for the worse. The couple finally arrived home.
So she's been living this whole time. So earlier when she said that nigga said multiple times she was feeling sick from her relationship with that black dude, Nathan. It didn't, apparently it wasn't life-threatening. It was just something to mention real quick. She got with a black man, and he was of greater high esteem than a slave like her. And while she was married to him, she was greatly, greatly sick. You know, all that nigga dick, okay? Cause these niggas is crazy. Oh, let's keep going. Oh my God.
On the 9th of June, 1893. Upon arrival, Amanda was seen by a doctor and was diagnosed with neurasthenia, or nervous exhaustion. The symptoms include unexplained chronic abnormal fatigue, insomnia, back pain, anxiety, depression, and headaches, among many others. Unfortunately, just 2 days later, Amanda American Dickson Toomer died on the 11th of June, 1893, due to complications of diseases. She was just 43 years old and had only been married to Nathan Toomer for about a year. Amanda's funeral was held at the Trinity Methodist Church. She was buried in her wedding dress.
Y'all see that says Toomer. Toomer could have been Nathan Toomer. It could have been the black husband's last name, so it could be her.
In Cedar Grove Cemetery, Richmond County, Georgia. Amanda didn't leave a will, so following Richmond County, Georgia Methodist Church, she was buried in her wedding of diseases. She was just 43 years old and had only been married to Nathan Toomer for about a year. Amanda's funeral was held at the Trinity Methodist Church. She was buried in her wedding dress in Cedar Grove Cemetery, Richmond County, Georgia. Amanda didn't leave a will, so following her death, a legal battle ensued for control of her estate.
Again.
In the end, it was settled out of court, with her mother, husband.
Dickson, wife of Nathan Toomer, about her, a true Christian, a loving wife, a devoted mother and daughter. Stay tuned, y'all. Y'all know we going deep. Stay fucking tuned. Hey guys, for those who have been watching me on the richest black woman in the world stuff, this is the David Dickson book, man. I'm just kind of going through it, and I just thought this was interesting. You can tell I'm trying to look for his color. The funny thing I find is all those newspapers was all she's copper colored, she's a Negro, she's a Negress, she's a this and that, a black and blah blah blah, you know. And then everybody was listed as colored, this and that, and he didn't like white, this and that. But I didn't. You can't. It's like it's taking me a while to find what this man's race was. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, boy, they really trying to hide this somewhere, you know? But I started just looking through the book. And I thought this was funny because it goes to corroborate. You see where it says, I once hired a Negro to herd a large number of cattle. And there was up here another one where he talks about uh, as far as labor, key to my success is managing it has been that I always fix responsibility upon each individual, white or Negro. I tell a man, go do something, and if they do it this way, you know, they're entitled to success. If they do it a different way, they're entitled to censure. But he ain't talking about no slaves. He talking about hiring people, giving people work, and talking about people on the same level as the white man, too. So, yeah, we'll see where this leads. And then down here he talks about how when a Negro went to sleep and some cattle broke out, cost about $2,000, and then when the Negro waked up, the cattle was gone and this nigga took off. He said he couldn't make a report because that's what took him so long to figure it out because this nigga just took off. But then he goes on to say, I then hired two other Negroes for the purpose of dignation. I will to, you know, and this is early 1800s or late, no, this is 1870. That he's talking about hiring them, you know what I mean? I guess that's still after slavery, 1865, if you want to count it, you know. But you know, the book came out in I guess it's 1870, whatever. And right here it talks about how the Negroes had held for him was marvelous. They considered it an honor to work for him and live in this place. This was those who hiked to work. He made it too hot for those to be afraid of work. Like these people like working for him. These were workers. He owned about 400 mules, 1,000 Negroes, and when there were about 1,000 Negroes, so it doesn't say he owned them. And when there were about 1,000 Negroes to this place, each one of them over 8 years old was over 8 years old and tell you his parents were. I found this, but they talking about some propaganda though.
David Dickson, who was 39 years old at the time, had relations with one of his enslaved girls. Julia was.
Does that look like a slave? All dressed up, pretty nice. Is that slave garments? Hair pulled back, earrings.
Only 13 at the time. David was 39. So how much can...
Wait a minute. She's grown up right now in this so-called photo of her. Hold on. Mr. Dickson was married, but his wife only lived a few months. If she was 12 years old, does that look like a 12-year-old? You see how the lies are continuing? This is probably the mom. Her last name could be Eubanks. And she's an adult. She's not a slave. She's his wife or lover. Wife, because Amanda becomes Amanda Dickson. Then Amanda Dickson has children.
How much consent was involved, how much emotion was involved, we really don't know. But because of that nighttime visit, a child was born, and David named her Amanda.
Listen to that again.
So, one of his enslaved girls. Julia was only 13 at the time.
was 13 years old and only lived a few months. And the other guy tried to say that she lived and it stayed around long enough for her to breastfeed and all this other stuff, whatever.
David was 39. So how much consent was involved, how much emotion was involved, we really don't know. But because of that nighttime visit, a child was born, and David named her Amanda. David loved the child, brought the child into his household, and the child was raised by David's mother on the plantation.
The mother only was alive for a few months. And there was another paper that said that too. And of course, most of them didn't say her name, probably because she wasn't around that long.
The biological mother, Julia, was also brought into the household, and she was the housekeeper and the main cook for the family. So David continued to have daily contact with Julia. And as the years grew, there was even some visitors had noted signs of affection between David and Julia. But because of the laws of the time, there was no way they could ever be married. And even it was against the law to even
Where
free
did you get this information?
slaves.
Where did he get that information? What newspaper articles, when there's numerous newspaper articles about her, what newspaper article did he get that information from? I found another video talking about this being her mom, but does this look like a 12-year-old girl who died months later? No. And unfortunately, this is a black person who made this video, just repeating the propaganda.
In rose-colored plush fabric. The funeral was held at Trinity. Mrs. Lewis Dickson and Amanda's second husband, Nathan Toomer, both petitioned in court to be designated the temporary administrator of her estate. Ultimately, Julia Dickson...
Wow. Just trying to read that, propaganda, whatever. But she has a whole place, man.
Nathan Toomer and Amanda's younger son, Charles Dickson, settled the dispute over Amanda's estate amicably out of court. Nathan Toomer later remarried and became the father of the prominent Harlem Renaissance author, Jean Toomer. Amanda American Dickson's life reflected the power of family and class.
The richest colored woman in the United States.
More lies.
Amanda Dickson was born in 1849 on the Dickson plantation. Her mother, Julia, was a 12-year-old slave who had been raped by her master, David Dickson. Dickson was by far the wealthiest man in Hancock County, an innovative farmer with extensive plantations. He made the presence of Amanda, Julia, and David can still be felt in Julia's Sparta home, now a museum, and on the Dickson plantation.
It's a very eerie thing to walk through that pecan grove that's there and think about her and think about Julia being there, to wonder where the rape took place, to wonder about people getting up in the morning, seeing the sunrise, experiencing the heat there as real, living, breathing human beings.
These people were the
living
richest
in such
people.
a complicated situation.
They were living in such a complicated situation, the rape and the complications.
These were the richest people in America at the time. And they lying. They done came up with this story. And what's the profit motive? They can make these little centers that they can, make money off of, little museums and shit, and put up little other areas and things, man, y'all, I'm still going.
Inheritance included
Even as of right
17,000 acres of land and bequests for money, aliment, written to a relationship David Dickson's mother.
Even as of right now, y'all, as early as 5 months ago, they're still coming up and repeating the propaganda, because propaganda works when it's repeated over and over and over and over, and nobody does any checking. Because then you have so much stuff to check. The stuff that they keep creating has filled up the sphere. So now, in order to check the real information, you literally got to go back to the actual newspapers to really figure this out. And then there's so many documents and information that's been changed. This could really be her, and I apologize for flipping her off earlier. But it's as far as a photo, but as far as everything else they're saying, the rape and all this other stuff of a slave and this and that, all that stuff is completely fake, and they know it. And this story was 1897, y'all. And this video, what made them want to go into this story history? Maybe there's somebody in Atlanta. Maybe there's somebody in Atlanta or something, and they just decided to, I don't know, man, because it's typically
Elizabeth Dickson.
a white voice, that's doing it. And we had that one black person that did it on the video, but, I'm going to go through the rest of these. As you can see, like, all of these are on here. And as you can see, none of these are going to be showing actual newspaper documents. And you got to think, how vast or how prevalent is the need to want to erase black people's history and the evilness to it, that these people would be studying this stuff. Like this dude right here looks like an regular old nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like straight up Mason. He's a goddamn Mason. He stays in a rural area. Look at that fucking stash. Like, everything about this mofo says, I'm the biggest liar. I'm probably going to take your kid and do things with him. All this other crazy stuff. They probably going to hate me for this video. They probably going to lose this. I'm probably going to lose my audio. But, God, man, damn.
Amanda's life took another turn when she married Nathan Toomer, a wealthy, educated man of mixed race, in 1892. This marriage, unlike her first, was within the racial boundaries deemed acceptable by society, yet it still challenged the norms due to their shared wealth and education. Had been born into family and wielded.
This is how propaganda works, y'all. I hope, for the people who watch this, I really, hope y'all understand. This is how propaganda works. I pulled up all those documents, all those newspaper clippings, and there's not one piece of newspaper clipping in here. But these people tell an hour-long story or a 27-minute story. They done made this elaborate video. It's done got how many views? How many people have they influenced off of this shit? Not many, 743 views. Y'all suck. But, this is how propaganda works. And this is a multi-part video. Somebody went that far in on propaganda. I'm glad I went far in on the truth. I'm glad I went way far in on the truth. They got actors replaying and shit, dude. Oh my God. The story, a slave who inherited a fortune and was doomed to her. How it doomed her. How did it doom her? What do you mean it doomed her? Oh my God, I'm just reading. Y'all, man. I need to be heading out here in a minute, but oh my God. And look at the thumbnail they made. I was just saying I was going to make a video. I promise you. I was just saying I was going to make a video about how these people come up with these new YouTube videos. And they pretty much are propagandizing. It's mostly some narration over random photos. And you can't fact check the photos. It's not that you can't. It's not hard to fact check photos either. It's just that you need something to read. You need documents. You need something. But when you have somebody just talking to you, and they're showing you photos and random videos and stuff, it really makes you think that you watching something official. So you just take in all of their propaganda on top of the little music and shit they put on top of it and everything, man. So, oh my God, dude. I mean, and you got to think about the amount of time spent doing that. What's funny about this is a situation I watched before where it was where this white dude met some black chick at the bar, and apparently he said he always wanted to have a baby with somebody, and she had a baby with him, and you know, it was like that was it, and he let her keep the baby, and I think I made a video about it, and it's funny it popped up right now, but and then when she got older, the whole time they told her she was white, so she believed she was white. So the whole time she grew up, she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a white person. I'm a white person." And then next thing you know, people start to tell her,
First up
no, you black."
We just want to make sure that you know. And oh my.
And so they had a conversation with you one day, and what did they tell you?
Oh my gosh. They're like, hey, you're telling us this about your family, but which one of your parents are black? And I was like, neither one of them. They're like, girl. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, you know you're black, right? And I was like,
it's this simple.
I was told my mom was Hawaiian and my dad was white. They were like, that doesn't add up. Like, we just want to make sure that you know. And oh my gosh. I mean, they were like you. They were there crying, laughing.
So, y'all think it's funny, man, which it is funny, but it's not. These people will lie to kids, okay? And the propaganda continues. I clicked through all of these. As you can see, there's several of these videos made about the story. Several of them made. There she goes. There's another one. There's another one. There's another one. And I skimmed through several of them. You know, they're all saying the same. I can tell they're saying the same thing because they're just all using the same photos. And every time I stop, I hear the same stuff. So I got to be the only one to tell the goddamn truth on this story. And I'm cool with that. You know, this allows me some content, you know, to be able to provide for the folks, man. Amanda must have wanted me to tell this story. I'm still going to have to figure out more about David Dickson and go into him. But since I had some time, I was just moving around and trying to see what I could find. Okay, y'all, jumping away from the video for a second, I went and looked up the Find a Grave, because a lot of times I'm starting to find you can start to tie people in and follow their lines depending on how much people have filled stuff out. Now there's a grave site for him, but again, I don't think that there's him at all. The newspapers, as we saw, list Amanda as a colored person. They list those Eubanks people as colored persons. Let me find it. Let me pull it up. Let me see. I think I still got it up. Okay, yeah, this is a good one to keep up. So you got, for sure, you got Amanda Eubanks colored, and you got somebody named Julian and Charles Eubanks colored, and an Edward Eubanks that doesn't have whether they're colored or not, and then David Dickson. So here on David Dickson, you can try to see people try to write in their history, and they don't have too many connections. They don't show his mother or father. He just come out of nowhere and just was making bread and gave it to this person. But then they even tried, I clicked on here, and I saw how they try to make a tie. Somebody posted some kind of genealogical chart, and I'm like, okay, let's take a look. They say David Dickson, Julia Frances Lewis Dickson. So they tried to claim that to be a slave, right? And that's how she came into play. And then Charles Eubanks, they try to say just came in out of nowhere as a cousin. But now you got to think, and they're saying that he's white, right? Even though the paper says he's colored. Let's look back at the paper. Charles Eubanks What does it say Charles Eubanks is? Color red. Okay? Color red. Funny. Like color red. Like the red man, like Indians. But then they try to say between those two. So technically that would be a black person and a so-called mulatto. But if he's a cousin and he's black, wouldn't that make him black? Or some type of black? The motherfucking line. How is he her cousin? They never said. Is he a cousin through his line or through this line? Even though there was a slave that he just ravenously did what he wanted to and all this other stuff, sexually with and all that other stuff. And then they come down here and they want to tie in Julian Henry. I think somebody just made this up. It's basically what I'm getting at. Because Charles Eubanks wouldn't be here unless Charles Eubanks and her had no, that don't make sense. It doesn't make sense that they would have children together before she went and had children with Nathan Toomer. And I don't even see Nathan Toomer listed on this mofo. It's saying that Charles Eubanks had Julian Henry Dickson and that Charles Green Dickson. And then they got with them and had them, Eva Walton and them. And so Julian Green, again, this is when I was saying, remember what I was saying? So let's pay attention. Why do they have the last name Dickson if they're his children? Especially when all the newspapers kept listing her as Amanda Eubanks. We only saw maybe once, maybe twice that they called her Amanda Dickson. But I was making the argument for her that she is Amanda Dickson because that's her fucking dad. And I was like, well, maybe Eubanks is her mom's last name, which I really do believe it is. I think it is, and they try to throw in this dude as a wrench in the to fuck with you or something. But you got Amanda here, Dickson, with Charles Eubanks, which means she would be Amanda Eubanks, right? And the newspapers referred to her as many times as goddamn Amanda Eubanks, okay, for whatever damn reason. And you want to tell me they said, well, hey, how about we name our kids Dickson after your grandpa? We don't have to worry about my last name because I'm a super simp. Come on, man. You can't even trust this shit, dude. Let me see what else they got on here of this nigga, but you can't even trust this shit. The Columbus, all these papers I found, and they ain't got enough papers in here for this nigga. The Columbus Times in notice in the file on the wall. Dickson in Hancock County says the principal heir is a colored woman, Amanda Eubanks, of course, whose share in the estate is said to be $400,000. The Times also said the other beneficiaries of the will will be Jillian and Charles Eubanks are also colored. Come on now. So if they're colored, then their kids are colored. And they showed us a white kid earlier in their video. Come on, y'all. The death of David Dickson. Long and most prominent. Hold on. Guys, oh my fucking God. Not only did I just find a book called, okay, was reading his obituary, okay? And it talks about how, he was a great agricultural farmer, all this land. At one point, he owned a bunch of slaves, Negroes, but it never says what color he is. There's 250 Negroes there, whatever. And then at the very bottom, it says something about him having a book called The Dickson System of Farming. And I was thinking in my head, nigga, who was the best farmers in the goddamn United States? It was us. Not only did I find the fucking book, there's a book at the library of, this book is in the Library of fucking Congress. This is the book too. Holy shit. Let me go back. Let me go the fuck back, nigga. Wow. know that's a lie. I've seen many times them whitewashed books. I've seen many books where they've taken and put a white head, literally, on a black body. I can show proof. There's a video on my shit. I don't feel like going through all that right now. But this is the book. Whoa. I'm gonna have to go through this bitch, you know. But if you know, they already got the front of it, you know, with that dude in there, so it's probably already whitewashed, you know. You can't trust all of these books. But this is insane. And you gotta think, this man has a whole fucking book out that he wrote about farming in his lifetime. Photos in it and everything. And the picture of his family is gone. We ain't got that many pictures of his daughter. His daughter with the people she was with. His daughter with you gotta be kidding me, dude. In my opinion, this was a black guy. And he was so prominent that he wrote a fucking book just like goddamn George Washington Carver, you know, to try to help motherfuckers and do things, and one of the biggest planners in his day, man, and they've literally fucked his whole reputation up. It says in here that he had about $500,000, and it also talks about how one year he only grew cotton for the army, and they were supposed to pay him another $500,000, and they stiffed him, didn't pay him a cent, and he would have been a millionaire during that time had they would have paid him. They was fucking him over. They don't fuck over their own kind like that. Y'all know what he was. Another part coming soon. They playing. I just want y'all to know that I'm making a post on this motherfucking video because I don't be playing. You know what I'm saying? Bow, okay? And basically, you can read it if you want to, but basically I told them I can't believe y'all put out these fake stories, whitewashing and propaganda. If you look at the newspapers, this was a big deal, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm going back through the newspapers again, y'all. We back on the real story. So right here talks about Amanda Eubanks, her sharing the estate. I'm so many joints in. But here, sorry, ashes. But here it talks about how Charles Eubanks and Jillian Eubanks are also colored. So again, if you've been following these, and you're going to have to go back because I can't keep going back. But now multiple times, multiple newspapers have said Charles Eubanks is a colored man. Amanda's colored. Their offspring would be colored, you know. But regardless of that, that's if they had offspring. I think they're brothers or something. Because, again, I don't know where the Eubanks is coming from. The Eubanks may come from the female he was with. David Dickson, because I looked over here. David Dixon's will. I'm going to read this. But maybe David Dickson was with, like I said, they don't want you to go down that Eubanks rabbit hole. Maybe David Dickson was with somebody named, with the last name Eubanks, and they kept their mom's last name for whatever reason. I don't know why that would be the case. But typically, as you can see here, she's also listed as Amanda Dickson. So I think they're playing with the names, and they all just didn't want to give the mom's name the Dickson name. And really, it should be David Dickson, Julia or whatever Dickson, Amanda Dickson, Charles Dickson, Julian Dickson. And when you look at, I think it was that Find the Grave that I pulled up on them. I may have gotten rid of it. But when you look at it, it lists them as her children, but really I think those are her brothers. Oh, on top of that, they tried to say that Charles was her cousin who married in and all that in 16. Whoa, these people got some in Texas, land in Texas. Look at this. David Dixon's will. The beneficiaries under the will of Mr. David Dixon are as follows. Henry T. Dickson, 1,000 acres in Texas. T.J. Wharton, 3,000 acres of land in Washington County. And Julian H. and Charles G. Dickson, minor children of Amanda Dickson. So, okay, they're children of Amanda Dickson. Who's the father? Julian and Charles. So, and they tried to say Charles Eubanks was, what did I say? I thought they was brothers. They tried to say Charles Eubanks is the reason why she got the Eubanks name, and that was her cousin in that video. Right, y'all? But here, and let me just show it on this video.
In Floyd County, Georgia, near the city of Rome.
First white cousin. He threw that in there like that, right? But what did I just show here? Amanda Dickson, let's see, blah, 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 blah. Julian H. and Charles Dickson. He called him Charles Eubanks, but it says Charles Eubanks here also is colored. But I think the Eubanks is the mom's last name, and the Dickson is the Dickson last name, and they're interchanging them between them. But or maybe not. Well, no, because they say these two kids are her kids, Charles Dickson, and she calls him last name Dickson. So it's a little bit confusing. But at the same time, there's definitely a lie. There's definitely lies. Everything that motherfucker said is not true. But you got Charles Eubanks here, and you got Charles Dickson here, her child, Julian and Julian. So David Dickson left his two grandchildren a little bit of bread and left their mom the bulk of the bread, is what this is saying. Okay. And then there's some other Dixons in there, Henry T. Dickson, so like there's a lot more to this story. And right here you got a Eubank. So let me read. I'm not for sure who this Eubank is right here, and I would really like to know how that name even ties in. But they group him into a bunch of people who he gave $2,000 each to. But these are just random people, and maybe there's a cousin in there. But if that was a cousin and she got with this person, Eubank, and they changed her name to Eubanks, they would make their last name Eubanks, which over here says Eubanks, but definitely not Charles. So definitely, I'm trying to wrap my mind around what they got going on with this lie, how convoluted they done fucked this shit up. But down here, it talks about how the rest of the estate will go to the children at her death, estate being worth $500,000. So yeah, no. This is just another paper really corroborating the same thing. It's actually years later, talking about her being the illegitimate daughter. It's like they still talking about her, and years later, and it's like she married Nathan Toomer, where they married at the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and then it starts to talk about how the will was split up and then how he paid, and it actually lists the Eubanks again, Charles Eubanks, as colored. So this is multiple times I've seen this nigga as colored. So it can't be the cousin of her that got with her and had kids outside of the marriage, and then all of a sudden went later on and got with a Nathan Toomer. So they've been lying about that for sure now. Boy, they was mad. I'm finding it, boy. Look at this, y'all. Where was it at? The home and life of the great farmer, talking about David Dickson, the main guy, Amanda Eubanks' dad, for the first time was laid bare, and as a young man, he had been dissolute. His attention toward Negro women had been such as to shut him off from the parlors of the white ladies. Living in a roomy old house in the center of his great plantation with Negro females to any number at his mercy as a slave owner, he simply defiled God and man. With money for his defense, refusing to receive visitors. This is like they trying to diddy his ass. Refusing to receive visitors of powerful physique, all of those things combined to give him immunity. Among those women, one named Julia obtained a singular influence over Dickson. She ruled him as imperiously as he ruled others. She gave birth to a girl, which he named Amanda. This child she declared to be Dickson's and be acknowledged its paternity. Dickson's white relatives, with the exception of one or two, repudiated his attempt to force Negro equality upon them and declined to acknowledge the colored woman Julia in any capacity. For this refusal, these relatives fell under his moral displeasure. He never spoke to them except with curses. His Negro daughter Amanda grew up to young womanhood and was educated in northern schools. Having given her the benefit of scholarship, Dickson set about securing for her a white husband, and by sufficient price. Now, remember, this is after she done got married to the black dude. Now they trying to come up with a story. Look, I only got a minute left. Securing for her a white husband, and by sufficient price and land, induced a young Bostonian named Eubanks to become the husband of his black daughter. Ooh, so y'all gotta come back for the story. You gotta come back for the story. This is propaganda for sure, because it's like, now you know what happened to him. You didn't even know what was going on in his life. Y'all was saying earlier, hey, we need more friends. We need to make sure we got more white friends in people's lives. Man, nobody know nothing about this dude. He done gave all his money to this black woman. What's happening? Oh, y'all got to come back. I'm not trying to even do y'all like this, but it's like a TV show where I just leave you cliffhanging and shit. And I ain't even trying. I was just literally reading that real time, y'all. For real. They playing. Okay, y'all. So TikTok removed the sound on one of my videos. I don't know which one it is, but at some point I'm going to upload all of these videos in succession to like my YouTube and Twitter and shit like that. But I'm going to continue the journey because they don't want us to know about this. So let's see where I stopped at, man. Let's see. Amanda grew up to a womanhood. We went past that. This Amanda was given a favor. Okay, no, let's see. Okay, yeah. So basically, we was at the point to where, in the last one, this is years later, and they're trying to, what I believe, come up with propaganda about the story. So what they have here is they're trying to say how the Eubanks came into play, and trying to say that the dad out of a sudden tried to find him a little Bostonian dude to get her, before, when she was younger. So here we go. Let's say his young Negro daughter Amanda grew up to be to young womanhood and was educated in northern schools. Having given her the benefit of scholarship, Dickson set about securing for her a white husband. And even though they just above talked about his love for Negro women. Since y'all didn't see it in the other one, I'm gonna go up. But right above here, okay, dumbass mofos. Let me kind of keep it cool so they don't be removing my damn sound. But right here, it talks about shutting him off from the parlors of the white ladies and stuff like that. And he had so many Negro women around him and all this other stuff. And he just developed his love for him. But then all of a sudden he was like, but I need to go find her a white guy. So Amanda grew up to young womanhood, was educated, whatever. Dickson said about securing a white husband, and by sufficient price and land, induced a young Bostonian named Eubanks. Now, is that his last name or is that his first name? To become the husband of his black daughter, okay? As a result of this marriage, there was 2 children. This Amanda Eubanks, then, and her 2 children were the chosen favorites of Will. They were the favorites. even though he didn't leave him nothing or much. Jeff T. Wharton, the only white relative who got anything like a legacy, got it because he never had anything but kind words for the rich farmer. The only relatives named were cut off with a pittance, and even that they would lose if they took the will into court. Hold on, let me move this down. The white relatives set up a contest to the will, nevertheless, but the Hancock County jury decided against them. During the trial of the case, the private habits of Dickson were mercilessly exposed. Evidence was introduced to show that Dickson could not have been Amanda's father. Dickson's brother Green was also brought into the inevitable notoriety. So they done found some random dude. Green. And didn't they say that in that documentary or that little 12-minute video, it says something about Charles Green or something Green, and I was like, Green? Is that the last name? Yeah, they tried to say that was Amanda's son through Eubanks. Charles Eubanks, they said. And they said something Green was they son, but now it's his brother. Anyways, so the brother was brought into court with the name Green, with inevitable notoriety. And the lawyers held that it was unsound public policy to allow a man to cut off his legitimate relatives for the benefits of such a broad. What? Are they saying like a broad like that? Broad? Oh my God, dude. Okay. So this is where we're at now. This is years later, and basically they've come up with a story of a Bostonian that Green, the Negro lover, was looking for a white dude for his black daughter that he was gonna leave all this money to. And he also apparently wrote in the will, according to that video, that you can't get none of that money to neither one of them husbands. But she had a husband before that was her cousin. But according to them, it was her cousin. But now it's a random Bostonian named Eubanks. See, you see how the propaganda mill is just so crazy? And this is 1887. Oh my God, dude. This should be the biggest story. I gotta just save that link, y'all. I gotta make sure I copy that link right there. Okay, y'all. So I reached the end of newspapers for Amanda Eubanks, and I think we got a lot of the story. But you know who I gotta focus on now, though, right? I showed you all I found his book, wherever the hell I found it, wherever the hell I put it. Hold on, where's his book? I found his book, and it's also listed in the Library of Congress. He was a huge farmer in the United States, a big deal. So it is going to be amazing to see what the story is about Mr. Dickson, right? If you stay tuned this long, just know I don't have enough time today to get to this shit, okay? But you on my brain, Mr. Dickson. You talking to me from the grave right now. And I want to know what you got to tell me, okay? So, yeah, I appreciate y'all staying in on that. The richest black woman in the world, Amanda Eubanks, David Dickson. This was his will. So if she was the richest black woman in the world, what the fuck does that make him? And he had the contracts with the government, and they stiffed him on it and shit, That's got to be some in the papers about that. Feel like my old grandpa, man. You know, he used to read the papers. Look at that, 1869. I'm just gonna tease y'all real quick. Tease myself. What is this talking about? David Dickson, respectfully. I'm willing to rest the case with the farmers as the commercial manures where Mr. Gift leaves it. But if you think this will benefit any of your readers, you may publish it, but under circumstances, I close now to the subject. Okay, whatever. All credit, therefore, to improvement is due to Mr. David Dickson of Oxford. Don't let me find something. Don't let me find something. You know I'm going to find it. You know what I'm looking for, and you know I'm going to find it. Y'all know what I'm looking for, man. Is this man black? There go his book. There goes the cover of his book, 1869. Okay? What is this man? Mr. David Dickson, you done got my attention. Okay? 1869, what is this talking about? I'm gonna just take up your little time real quick. Make this the final thing for her. Very yours truly, Mr. David Dickson. This is some letter he done wrote. Yeah, some letter he done wrote. Damn, it's hard to control these things sometimes. But yeah, man, yeah. Y'all stay tuned. That's gonna be the next series or something. I wasn't even trying to do this shit. I was just smoking this morning, and then my appointment canceled on me. So now I'm just chilling for another couple hours. Shit's real though. Shit is real. You know what, guys? I think I have an idea on what happened, and I think it's not really a good story about Amanda. Julian and Charles Dickson, or Julian and Charles Eubanks, Amanda Eubanks, they were the children of Amanda Eubanks. I started thinking again about this right here. And I started to say, who's Edward Eubanks? Amanda Eubanks, Julian, Charles, he was left some money. They was left some money. She was left the most. What I'm thinking, y'all, that's the first person she had children with. If these are her children, that's where she took on the name Eubanks, and all of them were colored. They wanted to erase Edward Eubanks out. Okay? And not sure if anything happened with the children. Excuse me, but then you have Amanda Eubanks. In this film we watched earlier, it goes into this random explanation of complications of health that she had. A lot of it was just a bunch of random bullshit. I'm gonna let you hear it. But I'm gonna tell you what I think happened. She died not long after she got with Nathan Toomer. Nathan Toomer was the colored guy that she got with, that they said in the newspaper that the white friends need to get close to him, and befriend him. Just so I can show, it shows that she married a prominent Negro of Perry. Sorry, eating a little popsicle. But, like, not too long after this, of her getting married,
Amanda travelled back home, except Charles Dickson were indicted for conspiring to kidnap the young girl. After having spent around a month in Baltimore, the ordeal was behind them, so Nathan and Amanda travelled back home to Augusta. Sadly, they were discriminated against when they were denied their first-class seats on a Pullman car. Due to this, they had to change their travel plans. As a result, the journey home was very unpleasant. Conditions while traveling were not ideal, and the very high temperatures caused Amanda's health to once again take a turn for the worse. The couple finally arrived home on the 9th of June, 1893. Upon arrival, Amanda was seen by a doctor and was diagnosed with neurasthenia, or nervous exhaustion. The symptoms include unexplained chronic abnormal fatigue, insomnia, back pain, anxiety, depression, and headaches, among many others. Unfortunately, just 2 days later, Amanda American Dickson Toomer died on the 11th of June, 1893, due to complications of diseases. She was just 43 years old and had only been married to Nathan Toomer for about a year.
So, what do I think happened? It almost breaks my heart. You hear that bullshit ass excuse he just gave? She died due to complications of diseases such as headaches, limp foot, she had depression, back pain, she had a kidney stone. This nigga was making shit up. Making it up on the fly, nigga. But all joking aside, I'm a comedian a little bit. Not really, but all joking aside, man, what I think happened, they killed that woman for that bread after she got with Nathan Toomer. That's what I believe is what happened. I believe that when they saw her going through all this stuff, getting all that money from this richest man in the world, and then slapped him in the face and turned around on top of that and got with a nigga, somebody had to get their hands on that bread some other kind of way. And I think that's the issue with the name changes. Why they years later threw in some young Bostonian when he was looking for her wife when she was 16. It was some young Bostonian he found. He wanted to find her a white wife after just sitting here talking about his love for Negroes and Negro women and stuff, man. So like, if y'all watch those other ones, goodness gracious. And I still need to upload those 1, 2 that the sound stopped. I'm just going to have to listen to it again and re-upload and try to... Well, you know what? I can figure out another way I'm going to re-upload it. I know a way I can go through and get rid of the bad parts without redoing the whole thing. But yeah, y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. Like, did I just uncover like a murder of the richest black woman in the world in 1887? And they're still making up excuses for it even today. It's like they can't even let her memory die. That they gotta still say the same story and add shit on and slave incest, rape, and oh my gosh. Yeah, I think that's what happened, y'all. We'll see.